Before we begin today's story, take a moment to subscribe if you enjoy emotionally driven stories that linger with you long after the video ends. These are the kinds of stories that aren't loud, aren't rushed, but quietly settle into your heart. And if you stay until the end, you might find yourself thinking about this one longer than you expect. Emily Carter sat by her rain-streaked window on a quiet Friday evening in her small Oregon town, staring blankly at the gray clouds sliding across the sky, feeling the familiar tug of loneliness settle over her like a heavy blanket. Life had been calm for months, maybe even too calm. Sometimes she wondered if calm simply meant emptiness. 2 years had passed since her painful breakup, and she had slowly learned to live with silence. At first it had felt unbearable, but over time the quiet moments became something she convinced herself were safe, even comforting. Still, a small part of her longed for something more. The soft hum of her laptop filled the room, and the faint smell of coffee lingered in the air when suddenly her phone buzzed sharply on the table beside her, breaking the stillness of the evening. Her eyes shifted to the screen. Seeing her younger brother Daniel's name made her heart skip a beat. Daniel rarely called unless something was important. Hearing from him this late almost certainly meant something serious had happened. Emily answered the call, expecting perhaps a casual conversation or a small favor. But the moment she heard his voice, she sensed something different. It was quiet. Too quiet. Can I ask you something?" Daniel said hesitantly. The uncertainty in his voice made Emily's stomach tighten with concern. She had rarely heard him sound this vulnerable before. "Of course," she replied gently. "What's going on?" For a moment he didn't answer. The silence stretched across the phone line, heavy and uncomfortable. Finally he spoke. "I need you to come with me to Vermont next week." Emily blinked in confusion. "Vermont?" "Yes," Daniel continued slowly. "But not just as my sister. I need you there when things get hard." The words hung in the air between them. Daniel had always been strong, stubborn, and fiercely independent. He was the type of person who handled his problems alone, someone who rarely asked anyone for help, which made this request feel unusual, important. Emily's mind filled with questions. Why Vermont? Why next week? What could possibly be so difficult that Daniel couldn't face it on his own? Yet beneath all of her confusion, another feeling stirred inside her. A quiet instinct. A pull telling her that whatever he was going through, he truly needed her there. She remembered all the times she had watched Daniel push through life's challenges with determination, refusing to let anyone see when he was struggling. And now he was asking for her help. Without even fully understanding why, Emily felt the answer forming in her heart. "Yes," she said softly. She didn't know what awaited them in Vermont. She didn't know if the trip would be painful or emotionally exhausting. But something inside her told her this was more than a simple favor. It felt like stepping into a part of her brother's life she had never seen before. As the rain continued tapping against the window, Emily sat quietly after the call ended, her thoughts racing with anticipation and concern. Agreeing to go felt like opening a door she could never close again. She sensed that whatever awaited them would change something between them, not in a way she could yet explain, but in a way that would stay with them long after the journey ended. 2 days later, Emily met Daniel at a quiet cafe near the airport. The moment she saw him, her heart sank slightly. He looked older somehow, tired, as if he had been carrying something heavy for a long time without telling anyone. The warmth in his brown eyes was still there, but it was shadowed by something else. Something that looked a lot like grief. Daniel stared into his coffee cup for several seconds before speaking. I didn't tell you everything on the phone," he said quietly. Emily leaned forward, placing her hand gently on the table near his. "You can tell me now," she said. Daniel swallowed hard before finally beginning to speak. And when he did, Emily realized this trip wasn't just about Vermont. It was about someone named Rachel, a woman he had loved deeply, a woman he had planned to spend his life with, a woman who was no longer alive. Daniel's words settled between them like a quiet storm. Emily felt her chest tighten as she tried to process what he had just said. Rachel. The name lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. She had heard Daniel mention Rachel once or twice in passing months ago, but he had never spoken about her in detail. At the time, Emily assumed it was simply another relationship that had come and gone quietly, the way many adult relationships sometimes do. But now she realized how wrong she had been. Rachel had not been just another chapter in Daniel's life. She had been the center of it. Daniel took a slow breath, rubbing his hands together as if trying to steady himself. "We met about 3 years ago," he began softly. "Completely by accident. I was traveling for work and stopped at this tiny bookstore in Vermont. She worked there." For the first time since the conversation began, a faint smile appeared on his face. "She recommended a book I wasn't even planning to buy," he said. "And somehow we ended up talking for almost 2 hours." Emily listened quietly, noticing how his voice shifted when he spoke about Rachel. There was warmth there, but also a deep ache underneath it. "We stayed in touch after that," Daniel continued. "At first it was just messages, then calls, then visits. Before I even realized it, she had become the most important person in my life." He paused, staring down at the table again. She was the kind of person who made everything feel lighter. Even ordinary days felt special with her. Emily could picture it as he spoke. The quiet bookstore. The conversations that stretched longer than expected. The slow, steady growth of something meaningful. "What happened?" Emily asked gently. Daniel's expression darkened slightly. "She got sick." The words were simple, but the weight behind them was enormous. "At first it didn't seem serious," he continued. "Just fatigue. Some tests. Doctors saying they needed more time to figure things out." Emily felt her throat tighten as she listened. "But then the diagnosis came," Daniel said quietly. "And suddenly everything changed." He didn't say the name of the illness. He didn't need to. The pain in his voice told the story. "We tried to stay positive," he said. "Rachel was stronger than anyone I've ever known. Even during the worst days, she was the one comforting me." Emily could see the memory playing across his face. "We made plans," he continued. "Trips we wanted to take. Places we wanted to see. Things we would do once she got better." His voice cracked slightly. "But the time we thought we had disappeared faster than we expected." Emily reached across the table and gently squeezed his hand. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, gathering the strength to continue. "She passed away 6 months ago." The cafe suddenly felt quieter. Even the distant conversations around them seemed to fade. "I didn't tell many people," Daniel admitted. "I didn't know how." Emily felt a wave of sadness wash over her. Her brother had been carrying this grief alone for half a year. "And now her family is holding a memorial gathering in Vermont," he continued. "A small one. Just people who knew her well." He hesitated again before finishing his thought. "They invited me." Emily understood immediately why the idea frightened him. Everyone there would remember Rachel. They would remember her with Daniel, the couple they had been. "And you're afraid to face it alone," Emily said softly. Daniel nodded. "I don't know if I'm ready to walk into that room by myself," he admitted. "Every memory will be there." Emily felt her heart ache for him. For months she had believed Daniel was simply busy with work, living his life as usual. She had no idea he had been grieving someone he loved so deeply. "I just need someone beside me," he said quietly. "Someone who understands me." Emily didn't hesitate. "You won't be alone," she told him. Daniel finally looked up, meeting her eyes. For the first time since the conversation began, the tension in his face softened slightly. "Thank you," he said. Emily gave him a small reassuring smile. But inside, she felt the weight of what lay ahead. The trip to Vermont would not just be a journey across the country. It would be a journey through grief, memory, and healing. And she knew that standing beside Daniel through it might also awaken emotions inside herself she had long tried to ignore. Still, she had already made her decision. No matter how difficult the coming days might be, she would be there for her brother. And together, they would face whatever waited for them in Vermont.